Well, I've been an artist, I guess, since I finished art school, which was in 1997 in Newcastle. What I like about being an artist is that I'm doing what I love, and I feel very lucky to be able to do what I love. Well, I think because my parents really pushed me towards art ever since I was little. They were both artistic, and they just encouraged me to paint and make things, and we had a very creative sort of house. And they didn't really kind of look at other subjects as important. They really valued art. So it was never really not an option for me. So I finished school, I went to art school. I started off in Canberra and I was in the graphic investigation workshop. And with hindsight, that was really the place for me. So that workshop was kind of multidisciplinary, and it was lots of drawing and printmaking and lots of different kind of mediums, and that's where I am now. I've sort of moved between painting and drawing and textiles and printmaking, and I am painting nearly every day from my home studio, exhibiting. Year before I finished a PhD, so I've kind of taken it as high as I can go as far as study goes, although actually I've just applied for a fellowship in Melbourne. Well, if I get it, what I'm doing now is I'm trying to combine my art life, my work life and my art life together. So I've tried different jobs, balancing with my art practice, and now what I'm trying to do is merge them together. So I have a business which provides art education, and it's called Zouwer projects. So it's basically projects, different projects. So I work with museums and galleries and community organisations and schools. So the fellowship would be about how important art education is, and how using art strategies across the curriculum benefit learners. The other day by a woman called Linda Barry, who's a great cartoonist, and she was saying when you're a child, if you don't sing and dance and draw, then people think, what's wrong with that kid? You know, it's normal, it's part of your life. As we get older, we stop doing those things. I think it's really important to recognise how important the arts are to having a sort of enriched, fulfilled life. And art gives you a different way of seeing the world. It's affected me hugely. The bushfires, the smoke, the terrible summer that we had, and then a few weeks reprieve, and then COVID. So it's really impacted my business, but also my practice. But in a way, the COVID experience has been kind of good for my practice, because I started doing daily paintings, and that helped me do something that I found meditative and kind of quietening, grounding is probably a better word. And but as I did these paintings, I've got some here I can show you. I was thinking about these ideas of social distancing and, you know, together, touching, not together. So it was kind of, these paintings are kind of little metaphors for, you know, what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. So it kind of made me think about what I was doing, ideas of like being alone, or, you know, groups of 5 or inside. So in a way, I kind of turned that experience into a kind of fun little kind of game for me making art. So I started off just looking through my sewing box and looking at things that I wanted to paint. So I guess from having done my PhD studies, that was very intense for 4 years, having to think about everything that I was making, because I had to write about it and justify it. So it's quite liberating when you finish something like that to just play with smaller ideas and see where that goes, which is much more of a natural way of working, going from one thing to the next rather than looking back, because I find most artists look forward, they don't look back. So while you're making this work, you're actually thinking, I wonder what the next one's going to be. I've wanted to use that technique before, but I've never followed through. This is the first time I've followed through, and I think I did 40 days straight. So I maybe missed like 2 days. Mostly they're from one sitting, so a 3-hour sitting. And then occasionally, maybe a bit more complicated, but not for many, I did 2 sittings. So but that was also liberating, not labouring over one work for ages, which is what I'm working on now, which is gives a much different mindset and not as fresh. I was actually also, as well as thinking about these little metaphors, I was thinking about paint and how you move it around, and I wanted it to look like a painting. I didn't want it to be all smoothed out. I wanted each little one to sing. So I kind of set that challenge for myself as well. And this is another thing that was really liberating, is it's oil paint on beautiful oil sketch paper, Arches oil sketch paper. It's very nice, it's very French. And it's very different painting on paper with oils, because you don't feel like you've stretched this canvas or this, prepare this panel, so it's got to be amazing. If you don't like it, you can chuck it out or you can cut it off. So yeah, and it's a very nice surface to paint on. Only issue is now I've got like 30 paintings here to display them. It's costly if I get them framed. It doesn't look great if you put them behind glass, because paintings need to not be behind glass, I believe. So I might get little linen tabs. And these works I'm going to enter in the Works on Paper Prize in the Mornington Peninsula Galleries. So my PhD was about objects and how small objects can kind of tell a story. I've got 9 of these paintings. They're gouache on Arches paper, and what I tried to do was create portraits, first of my house, but little handheld things, and then that extended into portraits of people through their objects. So I chose objects that I liked, that connected to that person and that told me something about their personality or their connection to me. So I did one of my children and my husband and my mother, and in researching objects, I was looking at this idea of connection to objects and connection of objects to events. So they're kind of souvenirs of a time, so they can represent a lot of things. Objects are really loaded. So yeah, so if you're starting out thinking about objects, thinking about what they mean to you, and one thing I think is interesting with the paintings that I've made is I wasn't really thinking about what other people thought about them, their connections, because it wasn't really about them. So that's interesting, because people will come to it with their own story. Oh, I used to have, that button or whatever, or they just won't get it at all. So thinking about your audience, if you want to connect with them or not, is that important? How would you do that? And it could be like through one of these paintings. I think this is just a little bit of rickrack. Maybe it's not about the object, maybe it's about how you present it that can connect with somebody. So somebody might not have any connection to this object. Maybe the way you paint it or present it might create an opening for that person to connect to it. So painting I'm working on at the moment. I'm hoping to get it finished to put in the Basil Sellers Art Prize next week. So I'm kind of under the pump. I've got a little study that I can show you. And generally I work really small. And that's another thing I like about small things. And I often to make a big work, I make many small works and put them together. So this is quite a different way of working for me. So I made this study and I was quite happy with that. So I thought, I'm going to try to make this a big one. So what it is, it's from a photograph that my husband took of me and my kids on the 31st of December 2019, which is actually my husband's birthday. But it was also the day the fires came to the south coast, and we got out really by the skin of our teeth. We were the last car on the highway between Maruya and Batemans Bay, and there was a point where I wasn't quite sure we were going to make it, and there was the fire was coming, and there was wind, and the kids were in the back seat. Talking about, there was that fire truck that got, knocked over, and I was turning to the back and saying to the kids, everything's fine, we're going to be fine, it's fine, and then thinking, I don't know if we are going to be fine actually. And Ross was driving and his arms were shaking, and anyway, we got through to Batemans Bay, and I've never been happier in my life, and there were some people there and they'd shut the highway down. And I said to Ross, do you want to get a coffee? Because it was pretty early. And he said, no, let's just keep on going. And we just kept going to Nowra. And as we were going through, the coast was shutting behind us. So we were so lucky. We went up to Nowra, then we went up through Kangaroo Valley, and then back home. We did not stop. And when we got home, we were just exhausted and just so happy to be alive, and I was just so happy to have my kids. Anyway, we fell asleep exhausted on the couch, and when I'm painting this, actually I didn't have this in the study, but in the photograph I'm working from in the big painting, I noticed there's all these glasses around because we were really thirsty. And it was also that time with the smoke that came with the fires, so I wanted to have that feeling of the smoke and the heaviness and that oppressive summer, but just also there's kind of these nice tender moments where I'm touching my daughter's head and my son's relaxing back, and so it's a pretty sort of loaded painting, I guess. And there is something cathartic about that, like working through, like even with my PhD work, which was sort of about migration and how I made sense of my own being as a first generation Australian with migrant parents. And that used to really, I felt like that kind of made me, it was my mum's from Finland and my dad's from Holland, and I've got these clogs and I've got this Finnish beer thing. And but actually as I went through, I started looking at objects from around the house that belonged to my kids and my husband, and it was much more about me now and what makes me now. And that's so that sort of helped me work through that, which is interesting. And painting your kids, it's a beautiful thing to do because you just enjoy it and you think about them as you're doing it. Painting the house, and there's washing everywhere because we couldn't put washing outside because it was too smoky. And Ross has got all these guitars and leads and amps everywhere, but it's all part of our house and our home that I love. So our friends we were staying with in Potato Point stayed behind, and then they couldn't leave because we literally got out 3 minutes before them and they couldn't leave. So I had this awful guilt feeling and worry feeling that something bad was going to happen to them. And we were talking to them, and they were telling us that they had watered the house down and done this and that and the other. And so actually Ross started watering our house, and we got our bags packed and everything ready to go. And looking back now, like, we weren't in danger of burning really. That's funny because for somebody who's so obsessed with objects and things, I thought about this, and I have a bunch of drawings and cards that my kids have made me, and that was about it for me, really. Everything else could stay.
Yeah.
Just wanted the kids and my husband.
Yeah.
And my
And
dog.
the dog.
But actually, stuff doesn't matter in the end. It's just stuff. And so, yeah, so favourite things, yeah. But actually, it's funny you say that word favourite things, because after the fires and with the smoke and everything, we had this great trip planned. We're so lucky to go to Mona. What's it called? The theme was favourite things by, the Rogerson Hammerstein from the, my favourite things. And there were a few different artists, and they interpreted that song in a different way. And there was this great Slovenian, I don't know how you describe what they are, industrial pop or something. Anyway, the guy has really deep voice like this, and he was singing about his favourite things, and it was funny and ironic. And they had this great video in the background of like Bambis and big chops and things that don't quite go together, which is another thing I really like, putting things that you don't ordinarily see together because it changes their meaning. And so this is kind of happening in the background. I found it sort of uplifting, and I thought, when I get back, I'm going to do a body of work about my favourite things, because that will help me to focus on things that make me happy. So yeah, I'd actually forgotten about that, and that actually was where I was starting with the COVID paintings, my ISO paintings, was things that make me happy, like wiggly rickrack and glow mesh. And I don't know why those things make me happy. I like shiny things. It does not remind me of my nana at all, right? So I don't have that association at all. But I love vintage things. I love retro things and anything 40s, 50s, 60s, or at the moment I'm into Italian 70s things. So. I love anything nostalgic, and I like the colours. I love these pastel colours and the contrast to the black and white, and I love packaging as well. I'm really drawn to packaging. Yeah. And some things are inexplicable. Why do you like what you like? I mean, that's kind of what my PhD was about, sort of a little bit of trying to understand why I chose the objects I chose. So I sort of tried to go deeper. Was it because they were connected to a story, it was connected to a family member, or was it something deeper? And in some cases, yes, and in other cases, no. It's just you're drawn to something because of its aesthetic qualities, I think. Like this is a little painting of glow mesh. I love this. I love painting it. It's really challenging, but I just love the shine of it as well. So and how it moves and feels, and so yeah, it's interesting, that idea of why. Interesting. It depends, I guess, if you're into. Some people are into the product. Some people are into the process, and I am very much into the process. So for me, it's about the doing, not as much the end product. Although I might be going, I'm putting this in this painting, this prize, or this exhibition. For me, the important thing is the process. So, don't not do it because you're going to end up with stuff. You can always burn it at the end. To tell you another thing about little things, it's called repography. Yeah, it's a great word. Study of trivial, meaningless things. And like a really good example is debris on the museum floor. It's like a really old mosaic, and it's just bits of crap on the floor, but they've made an artwork out of it. It's a really good one to look at, and it's about raising the importance of trivial things because they're important. It's a tough path to choose the art life. It's not the easy path. And some people say to me, why don't you just sell your paintings to make some money? And it's just not that easy. And I don't go into exhibitions thinking how much money I'm going to make, which is lucky because I don't make any money. It costs me a lot of money to be an artist. So I guess you have to be prepared to pay for your materials. You have to be really thick-skinned. You have to get used to getting rejection letters. And you just have to pick yourself up and just keep on trying. Because, the more you enter prizes or apply for exhibitions, the higher your chance is of eventually something happening. So you have to become thick-skinned. Be nice to people, because the art world in Canberra is really small, actually in Australia probably, but it's important to think about your networks and who they are, and because that can really affect your chances of getting grants and exhibitions, and people remember you. So especially remember you if you're really great to work with. So when you do work in have an exhibition, just try to do everything right, be on time and ready to go, and yeah. Getting to explore new ideas and doing something that is really fulfilling and makes you happy, and like when I do a painting, hours and hours can go, so I know that I'm in a good headspace, I'm doing what makes me happy. And so when I'm painting, and it's like when I was doing my ISO paintings every day, it put me in a really good headspace. But the other thing is that it ebbs and flows. So sometimes you might find that you're making a lot of work, and other times you're not making as much work, but that things change depending on where you are in your life.